So it's smoking to all my dragons, divine righteous, almighty greats, overachieving, never slacking. We back again with another American Reacts video, and this time we got top 10 historical facts that aren't true. Right? I'm enjoying these reactions because I learn a lot throughout them. I'm not the type of person that's biased and it's like, well, already coming into it thinking a certain way. I have an open mind and I'm willing to just hear things and learn and grow. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just hop into the video. The original link will be in the description. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you guys see the super thanks by the share button, go ahead and show some love because that directly supports this channel. With that being said, I don't want to waste no more time. Let's get right into this. Top 10 historical facts that aren't true. Let's go.
Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching Top 10's Net, and in the video today we're looking at the top 10 historical facts that aren't actually true. Number 10. Columbus was the first European to discover America. While this old belief has been largely expunged from...
Before he even starts, I had studied that there was Vikings that was already in America. They had discovered America.
The historical record today, at one point it was believed as a fact by generations of school children and is still maintained as true by some adults even today. Of course, the truth is that the Vikings preceded Columbus by centuries and may have even built small villages in the New World hundreds of years before Columbus was born. Even if that weren't the case, however, from a purely technical perspective, Columbus never actually touched foot onto what is today the United States, spending all of his time in the East Indies. Number 9. People in Columbus's time thought that the world was flat. Closely related to the belief that Columbus discovered America is the belief, again less prevalent today than it was half a century ago, that most people in his day believed the Earth was flat, and if Columbus sailed too far out, he would fall off its edge. In reality, the notion that the Earth was flat had been refuted by the ancient Greeks, who were even able to calculate its circumference with astonishing precision, and so was not held to be a fact by any but the most primitive cultures at the time. Number 8. Hitler seized power in Germany by force. Many people hold the misconception that the Nazis seized power in Germany, but nothing could be further from the truth. The fact is that the Nazis came to power through free and fair elections, and even used the democratic process to secure that power. In effect, Adolf Hitler, appealing to the very legitimate grievances and fears of the German people, used the ballot box to achieve the powerful position of Chancellor, and then used that very same process to destroy democracy by having the legislature grant him the emergency powers he convinced them was necessary to restore order.
So I'm gonna go ahead and we got these ads coming up. What do you guys think so far? I'm enjoying it so far. I think it's really interesting information, and we just started.
Number 7. The stock market crash of 1929 started the Great Depression. Of all the misconceptions surrounding that dark era in American history, the idea that the crash of October 1929 kicked off the Great Depression is the most obstinate. The fact is that the Great Depression was caused by a number of factors, each of which went into making it a deeper and more enduring economic downturn than it would have been otherwise. Instead of letting the market make its own corrections and wait it out, they passed legislation, such as the Smoot-Hawley Act, that raised tariffs on imports, which was designed to make it cheaper to buy American products. The problem is they didn't anticipate that foreign governments would raise tariffs on American goods in response, thereby killing exports and forcing the mass closure of many factories. Bad government policies also caused many banks to fail, wiping out the life savings of millions of Americans, which further exacerbated the problem. Number 6. Japan had to attack America if it wanted to survive economically. The belief that Japan was largely forced into attacking the United States because of the crippling embargo America had imposed upon it in response to its aggression in China is debatable. Japan had two options available to her other than attacking the Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. First, it could have negotiated an end to her 4-year-long war with China, which Japan was unwilling to do, or it could have simply seized the oil and mineral riches of the Dutch East Indies, modern-day Indonesia, and the Malay Peninsula directly without involving America at all. Consider for a moment that if the US was unwilling to go to war in Europe to assist Great Britain in its struggle with Nazi Germany, what were the chances Congress could have been persuaded to take on the Japanese over the Dutch East Indies and Malaysia? Number 5. If Lee had won at Gettysburg, the South would have won the Civil War. It is widely believed that the Union victory at Gettysburg in July of 1863 prevented the North from complete collapse, but a careful look at the overall strategic situation at the time demonstrates this to have been unlikely. First, even if Lee had routed Meade's army at Gettysburg, they would have come at considerable cost, especially considering the number of Union troops Lee faced, over 90,000 compared to his own 70,000 men. This means that even if he had been victorious, Lee would have emerged from the battle with a largely exhausted and depleted force left with which to march on Washington almost 100 miles away. Additionally, Gettysburg would have been only the first in a string of obstacles he would have had to overcome as he moved east. Eventually, he would have to retreat back into Virginia in any case, and though he could add another Confederate victory to the long list of victories Lee had enjoyed up to that point in the war, the South simply couldn't match the North's almost unlimited industrial capability and was doomed to eventually lose in any case. Number 4. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves. Most students grow up believing that the Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves, but it did no such thing. First of all, it only applied to slaves living within the Confederate States, and since the North had no power to enforce...
I knew about this. It's interesting listening and just hearing what he's saying. And I'm the type of person, I go back and I end up studying deeper into things. That's just how I am. Like, I listen and I go back and just continue to do my own research and look into what he's saying.
Force the proclamation in those territories not under its direct control, it really had no immediate effect on freeing anyone. In fact, it didn't even free those slaves in the northern states, where slave ownership, while uncommon, was still legal. It was only illegal to buy and sell slaves in the north, not only...
I can hear people now, Lincoln freed the slaves.
them. It would take the 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, to do that, and it applied throughout the country, not just parts of it. Number 3. Lindbergh was the first person to fly across the Atlantic. While Lucky Lindy won fame and fortune for his daring solo jaunt across the Atlantic in 1927, he was far from the first to cross the ocean by air. In fact, 2 British pilots, Alcock and Brown, had made the crossing years earlier in a repurposed RAF bomber. They flew from St. John's, Newfoundland to...
Even though this is solid information, I still personally, my personal beliefs, which obviously no one has to believe or even care about what I'm saying, but I personally believe that, other cultures been flying and had certain technology, and I feel like history lied pretty much, and I just don't believe majority of the stuff. Like, I believe there was already Wi-Fi, and there was probably, there was so much, and I believe that things have just kind of been recycled around and given back like it's been new. But I truly believe that there's been, all type of advanced societies prior to what we know now that were flying and doing all type of stuff. Probably already flying, different type of airplanes or vehicles, and it's just, that's what I believe. Somebody on one of my videos said, "Oh, you seem like you're just thinking of what to say." This is a reaction video, let me make that clear. So yes, I am thinking before I talk, and yes, I am reacting. Yes.
Galway, Ireland in just under 16 hours in 1919. That flight paved the way for commercial transatlantic aviation and made Lindbergh's future flight possible. Further, just a couple of weeks after the British duo had made their flight, the British airship R-34, with a couple of dozen crew and passengers on board, made a double crossing, taking about 4 days to cross both ways. In fact, by the time Lindbergh made his world-famous crossing, close to 80 men had already made the epic journey. His, however, was done entirely solo, and clocking in at almost 34 hours of straight flying time was a far more...
I'm thinking about what I just said about that guy saying, seems like you just thinking of something to say. Well, I was always taught, think before you talk.
A more challenging and grueling feat. Number 2. Custer's 7th Cavalry was wiped out at Little Bighorn. While many assume that Custer's entire command was wiped out at the Battle of Little Bighorn in June of 1876, the truth is that less than half of the 647 men under his command were killed in the famous battle. The reason for this was twofold. First, some of his men were assigned to drive and guard the lengthy wagon train that followed in the army's wake, and so were too far away at the time to be involved. And secondly, Custer had divided his command between himself and Major Reno in an effort to make a two-pronged attack. Reno's assault, which preceded Custer's by an hour or so, was driven off with heavy casualties, but most of it emerged from the battle intact. It was only those companies that rode with Custer, about 210 men in all, that were entirely wiped out. Number 1. The USA was chiefly responsible for defeating Germany in World War I and World War II. While American material and military support was imperative and likely ensured an eventual Allied victory, it was others who bore the brunt of the fighting against Germany in both wars. In World War I, the US was late to the show.
The intellect's going to be debating about this one. They're going to be debating.
Not making it to France in significant numbers until late in 1917. It was the British and French who had been doing all of the fighting up until then, and had battered the Germans by the time the US entered the fray. In the Second World War, things were much the same, with American troops not arriving in theatre until very late in the war. While they fought largely rearguard actions in North Africa and Italy, by the time they landed in force in France in June 1944, the Germans were already reeling from the massive Soviet juggernaut that was rolling over them from the east. In fact, over 80% of all German casualties in World War II came on the Eastern Front. While it was the US that was chiefly responsible for defeating Japan in the Pacific, it was the Soviet Union that did most of the heavy lifting in Europe. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do give us a like below, and also subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Also, over there on the right are a couple of other videos you'll probably enjoy if you enjoyed this one, and thank you for watching.
So honestly, like, he just came with a lot of information that I did not know at all. In the beginning, with the whole Vikings being the first Europeans, I definitely studied that because I study a lot about Vikings. I've for the last, I want to say, year or so, I've been interested in that history, so I've studied a lot about them, and they were just traveling people. But I honestly believe there's still even so much, even prior to that we just don't know. And I know how humans are. You know, it could be some human that's in power that just like, you know what, I want to hide stuff from them, or I don't want them to know this for whatever reason, or, you know, who knows, right? But I just feel like when it comes to history, it's just, there's so much, bro. There's so much that the intellects are always going to be debating. You know, it's not going to stop. As far as so much information he just dropped, he dropped so much bombs. I mean, people are going to be debating. There's people that's going to be in the comments on this one going in, and I'm fine with that. Like I said before, as long as it's not a personal attack on me or how I do things on my channel, you can say what you want. You know, I don't care if you like what you are, what your background is, what your gender is, what your sexuality is. You know, you a Confederate flag type of guy, or just, I don't care. Like, you can state your piece, bro. You know, state your piece. I'm here. I read you guys' comments, and, you know, like I said, I'm an open thinker, a free thinker. I try to come in with a non-biased opinion, and I don't know everything, you know, and I'm just learning. I'm a student, so I'm looking forward to the comments. You guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Original link will be in the description. If you guys see that super thanks, go ahead, show love, because that when you buy a comment, it directly supports this channel, and it just pretty much lets YouTube know that, you know, you guys love this content. So with that being said, drop them comments. Let me see what you guys got to say about this, so I can look up and study, and let me know what you think is wrong about the video, or, you know, if you agree with the video, all that. With that being said, enjoy your day. Much love.